Now, top United Nations officials have said the conflict in Sudan has plunged the country into one of the worst humanitarian nightmares in recent history and could trigger the world's largest hunger crisis. There are also fears that in Darfur, in the west of the country, a repeat of what the US called genocide 20 years ago may be beginning to unfold. Relief International is one of the few organizations providing support in North Darfur, where over 500,000 people have been displaced. They're also operating in Blue Nile and Sennar states. Now I'm joined by Mark Atterton, who is Regional Director at Relief International from Juba. Mark, you've been trying for days to go to the refugee camp in Renk, which is a town just over the border in South Sudan. But because of sandstorms, extreme heat, it's become really difficult. There have been cancellation of flights as well, and just goes on to show how difficult the situation is for aid workers to go to one of the worst and worsening refugee crisis centers.
Yeah, good morning, Davina. Hi, thank you. I'm in Juba, as you say, and my intention was to indeed get to Renk this week, and the dust storms here and the heat wave that South Sudan is facing have interrupted that. Just to say, Relief International has been working here since 2006, and in Sudan itself even longer, actually. And I was in Port Sudan a couple of weeks ago. And as you have documented and said already on the programme, the situation there is one that is catastrophic, I would say, and one that seems to be out of the news and has lost a lot of international attention as well.
When you say it's lost a lot of international attention, why is that?
Look, obviously we're in a world where there is a lot of chaos globally with the situation in Ukraine, the situation in Gaza today. So we are seeing the world shift its focus to new crises as they emerge. But we mustn't forget that today in Sudan, over 8 million people are displaced. And the conflict is ongoing today. We used to have an office in Khartoum. We haven't been back to Khartoum for almost a year. Remember, this conflict started on April the 15th last year. We've had to move all of our operations to Port Sudan, which at the moment is a safe place for us and international organisations like Relief International to do their work. And amazingly, we have been able to continue to work in North Darfur. We're running around 30 health facilities there.
And what are people coming to those health facilities telling you? What kind of operations are there? What kind of aid are you able to give them?
So a lot of our focus is on really, bluntly, supporting people to stay alive. The amount of support to nutrition and feeding for those who are severely malnourished is a big part of what we do. Of course, life goes on for many people. Babies are born, people have their ailments, and their access to healthcare has to continue. But also we've got a huge amount of displacement. We've got a huge amount of trauma. We've got a lot of SGBV, sexual gender-based violence happening. And so all of these need attention. And our clinics, which have, over the course of the last year, been subject to suspension and shells falling near them and shrapnel piercing the roof, piercing the walls. We've had to really make sure that they are fortified and able to continue to work. And amazingly, our staff have continued to do that in amongst the conflict that's going on there.
And how are you looking at the months ahead, especially those who are in the most vulnerable category, women and children? What happens from here on as the aid continues to get little by little and drip by drip?
Yeah, absolutely. I mean, we must recognise that a number of governments have stepped up and are supporting the Sudan context, but the overall funding is inadequate at the moment and a lot more is needed. We're entering the lean season. This is the season where people would normally be at their most hungry and vulnerable. And so the concern is great. The concern is that we could see famine in Sudan. We will see, I think, a lot more displacement and more refugees moving into neighbouring countries, including Chad, including CAR, including South Sudan. These countries are some of the poorest in the world, right? So the ability to support and manage refugee settlements is stretched already.
So what kind of support would you want for your team immediately?
Yeah, Relief International, we are continuing to provide medical supplies, nutritional supplies, and we need to be able to continue to do that. At the moment, our supplies are being topped up on almost a month by month basis, and that's not good enough. That poses a massive risk that if our supply chains are interrupted by conflict, and they have been, we are going to face serious need and not be able to meet it. So it's the supply chains that need to be maintained. And of course, moving nutritional supplies, moving pharma in these sort of environments is incredibly expensive. So the international donor community, to a point, are recognising that, but the funding is not enough. There needs to be more overall funding, not just to Relief International, to the other humanitarian aid organisations who are providing life-saving aid at this time.
And as you said, also a way to get to those far-flung towns like Renk that you were trying to get to, where the refugee
Yeah, look,
crisis is worsening. Mark Atterton, I'm afraid we'll have to leave it here because of time, but Regional Director at Relief International joining us from Juba.
Well, let's return to the situation